But I didn't record an intro. So hi, my name is Tara, left that part out too, and welcome to So You're Autistic, which is basically an Autism 101 where I discuss briefly my journey to discovering I'm autistic, but mainly throughout a multi-episode series. I will be sharing everything that I've learned as a late diagnosed young adult about how to navigate the world as an autistic person while acknowledging the difficulties, but also just focusing on really the strengths of discovering you're autistic, how we navigate learning we're autistic, and just methods you can use in your day-to-day life to better live as an autistic person. It's going to be different for everyone, but basically this is a cheat sheet on how to be autistic safely and with support as someone who's just discovered they're autistic. Yes. Anyway, back to disorganized me. So, you're autistic. So am I. So just a fair warning. I'm just gonna give a tick warning for those of you who need it, and also, I don't know, no other warnings. There'll be lots of stimming, whatever. It is what it is. Abnormal language, it is what it is. We're all autistic here, or we're someone very close to someone that's autistic, and if that's you, thank you so much for being here. We love you. You're the best kind of ally. Anyway, you're autistic. What now? That is such a scary question. Basically, I'll get into a little bit about my story in a second, but I'm creating this episode because I just keep having people in my life or parasocials online that I see who are discovering they're autistic, or they know I'm autistic and they're asking me a lot about it. And so I thought I'd just jump on here and make a little web series, and hopefully it's good. I'm not a medical professional as much as I aspire to one day be. I'm not yet. And I am flawed, and of course, being an autist, sometimes the way I make personal frameworks for things isn't always the whole picture. There's going to be things I'm completely blind to and things I get wrong, and that's okay. That's just part of the journey. It doesn't mean that anything is wrong because it's not applicable or because it doesn't feel like it applies to you. That's okay. And also, this series isn't about whether am I autistic, am I not autistic. This is not about a video about how to work out if you're autistic. This is a video for people who have discovered they're autistic, or are on the, maybe they've been on the self-diagnosis road for a while, wherever you are. You are autistic, or you feel as though you're autistic, and life is hard, and you're feeling kind of scared, you're kind of lost, and you don't know what to do. This is basically how to be autistic 101 for, I guess our level 1 and 2 autists out there. I feel like I can't, or levels aside, I think this is for people who have been functioning very much so, or they have been participating without assistance, and they're now in a position where they're not really functioning without assistance, or they don't have access to assistance, or they're just angry, or you're having meltdowns the whole time. I feel like I'm rambling. I feel like I'm getting into the source already, and we're not at the source. Also, ignore my French. I thought maybe that I wouldn't be able to talk without having something to do. So I have all my makeup out here and my fringe pinned up, but now I'm yapping, and the yapping is happening, so that might not happen. I don't even have anywhere to be. I just thought it would be nice to have something to do, and I have all these STEM toys on my desk. But we're yapping. Anyway, this doesn't matter to you. This is my dog in the background. Oh, hi, buddy. If you hear squeaks, it's just the boy. He really wants to go out, but it's been raining all day. And I have barley belly. Okay, anyway. A little bit about my story. So, I was diagnosed with autism only last year. But I knew I was autistic for maybe a year or two before that. but officially diagnosed, and I sought diagnosis specifically to get a disability support pension. So my choice for being diagnosed was partially for validation, even though I had medical validation already without a diagnosis, but mostly for government support, because I was in a position where my parents could only support me so much, and I really wanted to move out of home to focus on my studies, and I couldn't see myself doing that without having assistance financially. And ideally I'd love to have assistance with a lot of other things, but thankfully I live in a household with other autistic people where we help each other when we can, which I'll get into that a little bit maybe in a future episode. And I also have a partner who I'm very grateful for and is very much my number one support person when I can't do things. Otherwise I don't think I could be too independent. So that was my reason for seeking diagnosis. I guess we'll just go from the start. So for me, basically, I grew up experiencing a lot of depression from a very early age. I won't get into specifics, but depression from an early age, which in high school turned into just getting in with some of the wrong kind of people, and I then developed quite severe anxiety, and then kind of as a coping mechanism to some of the things that are happening to me and the people around me, I developed drug-induced psychosis, and I sought medical treatment. I've been in remission for years, but basically all of my teenage years I had a lot of abnormal behavior, but it was very easily explained by having an experience with psychosis. And my brother was diagnosed ADHD from a very young age, so I was aware of neurodivergence, but I wasn't very involved in his story with neurodivergence. That was very much like something my parents dealt with, and all I knew that was that he struggled at school sometimes, whereas I, through primary school actually, had a severe learning deficit. I would say I was always in the assisted learning classes, and then all of a sudden I just became kind of hyper focused on good grades. I think I got a maths tutor and I saw my grades doing well, and I finally was like, oh wow, doing well at school is fun. And so I started asking to do my work in the library after we'd been told what to do, and kind of I just want to work alone because I struggled with noise. So there were a lot of signs in early childhood, which are not that important because this isn't necessarily a symptom video. But then, yeah, all of my abnormal behavior as a late teen, early adult, was better explained by having psychotic symptoms, and depression, being super isolating myself a lot or needing to rest a lot. It was better explained by depression at the time. So how I found out that I was autistic was actually after COVID and a number of major life events. I was in a job and I was really desperate to save up a lot of money to achieve some specific goals. And so that landed me at a job that paid me quite well for my age in hospitality, where I started off working maybe 25 to 30 hours a week, but then after some hierarchical changes and a number of situations, I ended up working about 50 to 70 hours a week. And the person who came in as my new boss during that time was not a nice person, and basically I just was a shell of myself, saying yes to everything because the money meant more than my help at the time. What that resulted in for me, thank God, was not another psychosis, actually developing very, very severe Tourette syndrome. And so I had tics all throughout my life, and I knew they were tics, but they were so mild, people wouldn't know. I think the only real noticeable one that I had was blinking. People who went to high school with me knew that I just had the eye twitch. It was kind of brought up every now and again by a few people, but otherwise I had tics. I didn't even notice them most of the time. We'd just laugh about it, whatever. Some embarrassing encounters. But they were all just like kind of mild motor tics. But following kind of a breakdown at this job and a health scare, I was left with severe Tourette's, which left me unable to work and also kind of in full-time care of my parents. I had a couple social workers. I had a psychologist that I saw once a week, and I also saw my GP once a week. I ended up on Seroquel, 200 milligrams, which is crazy, of Seroquel for 3 months because I just was handling this sudden change so poorly and I couldn't sleep. I just like needed something, which I don't think is the best medication. If you are someone with Tourette's and you're having a bad outburst, I wouldn't say that Seroquel is going to be the best medication for you, but it was important for me because of my history of psychosis. Anyway, this video isn't about Tourette's and I'm babbling, but basically I had a lot of therapy for Tourette's, so much therapy, behavioral therapy, medication, accommodation, social workers, blah 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 blah, everything that you do, basically rehabilitation to go back to life. And also lots of stuff about anxiety, because my anxiety was just so bad. I at that point almost had mild agoraphobia because I just did not want to leave the house. I was so anxious, and so many of my tics are quite dangerous for myself too, so it was really scary to go outside independently. And even if I'd go outside with someone holding their hand, I'd often wouldn't last long before I was crying. But after a lot of therapy, my Tourette's went from very severe Tourette's to pretty much mild Tourette's. A lot of people that I meet don't know I have Tourette's unless I tell them, if I'm just like meeting them in passing. But after that, there was just, my tics were gone, but there was something that was just still there. And I had, because I had been A, so distressed, and B, had so much assistance living, wait, am I even filming? Thank God. Because I had so much assistance living, I had huge skill regression, like massive, insane levels of skill regression. And it was very much kind of like, oh, but like this isn't really a facet of Tourette's. And I had, I think it's important I say this, I had multiple psychiatrists and clinical psychologists and even an OT say to me throughout my Tourette's rehabilitation phase that I should be tested for autism, and I laughed it off, which is actually crazy because I had a tic for a while where I'm actually not going to do it because it might cause me to start ticking, but basically I would tick in a certain accent, like Tourette's and autism, again and again on a loop, which is so funny because I really did not believe I was autistic. I think my understanding of autistic was very wrong, badly informed. I wouldn't say like I was outwardly ableist, but I had so much internalized ableism still, despite being in full-time care. And I just was like, I'm definitely not autistic. And also I thought that if I was to consider myself autistic, I would be attention seeking. And I was already so insecure about the attention that I did get for being Tourette's, and I didn't want it, that I didn't want something else that would make me feel even more like an other. But after multiple people telling me I should test for autistic and that I had a lot of symptoms that weren't better explained by Tourette's and weren't better explained by my mental health history, I finally considered autism, and alas, yes, it was that. And like, I think anyone put in an environment where they're fully dependent on other people would experience like some behavioral changes to do with skill regression, but so many of the communication deficits I was experiencing, emotional dysregulations and sensitivities, were mimicked to ones that I had in childhood, probably later than I should have. So for example, even late in primary school, I was constantly bullied for having very babyish language. I've always had kind of like some kind of language deficit, even though I'm like conceptually very proficient. and I can be well spoken at times. Like, I have always missed words, jumbled them up, like always had some kind of language deficit, which is its own thing, but basically a lot of things that are comorbid and a part of the autism spectrum. I'm also ADHD, of course, that's very comorbid with Tourette's, and so is OCD. I would not reach the prerequisites for an OCD diagnosis, and I don't, but I do have some like mild adjacent symptoms. Not enough for me to feel like I identify with that label though. Yeah. But yes, so at the end of the day I realized I was autistic. It's kind of like, imagine that like a massive bomb went off in my life, and then I cleaned up like all the debris, but things just like weren't the same. And I had to reinvent myself, and for me to move forward I kind of just had to like understand autism. Is that a good metaphor? I don't know. But basically, yeah, that's my story. I'm so guilty of rambling, so I don't know what that means, but yes, just for some context. So I guess some overarching themes that just from telling my story that have come up, because this is an introductory episode. I planned for this to be a whole series if I didn't mention that before. There was a lot of confusion, grief, exploration, like identity diffusion, and just like so many knockbacks throughout this whole process. And it was really hard. Like, I'm sure if I wanted to, I could cry saying that. It's like I have faced so much adversity in my life, but rebuilding my independence and being someone who can advocate for themselves and is as high functioning as I am as an autistic individual after being in severe burnout and having assistance with living is the hardest hill I've climbed, and I'm sure it probably will be the hardest hill I climb. It's really hard to just even conceptualize something that would be as challenging as the journey I've been on. And I am sure that if you're on the other side of this screen right now, you probably feel really, really intimidated. And I just want you to know that I am here to hold your hand as I can with boundaries. I'm a person making a video. But I have walked this path, and it's a safe path. It seems really scary. You can't see the other side of the mountain, but this path is so well paved. And actually, you know what? Think about what is it called? Like a desire path, like the path of discovering you're autistic and coming back to yourself after that, and the whole journey that it involves is such a well-walked desire path. It's different to how you're taught to walk. It diverges from the path everyone else is going on. There's not so much great signage. You kind of have to look for the broken brushes yourself, but so many people have walked this path, and you are walking this path, and you're helping the next person walk it too. And I promise you that you're gonna be okay, and nothing is wrong with you. If anything, it's a much more beautiful path than the normal one. And it once you get to the other side, walking is easy. It's so easy, and it's so much more joyful than any other alternative. I'm gonna pause and take a quick break because I'm rambling, and I'll be right back, and we're gonna get into maybe some feelings, what is skill regression, what to expect in the first few months of discovering you're autistic, how to kind of like discover things yourself, what you should do, and then finally what we're going to get into in the rest of the series. Okay, I took my fringe out and it looked like doo-doo, so I just wet it and brushed it down. I'm actually feeling quite vulnerable after sharing all of this because there's so much insecurity about, is this meaningful? And yeah, I guess I just like know I yap too much, and it's really hard to filter, especially when I'm feeling really emotional about a topic. But anyway, that segues us right into the next topic, which is all about grief. Damn, this is just like such a huge topic. It's going to be really hard to talk about it briefly, but I'm sure, like, A, you're scared, B, you're grieving the old version of yourself, C, you're probably feeling really hopeless, like everything that you were working towards and everything you dreamed is probably out of your reach. Wow, this sounds terrible. But I promise that actually autistic joy outweighs any of the rewards you would have felt for achieving any of those things in the way you previously aimed to do so, because everything that you have done and you want to do is so possible even still, even if you're experiencing like a mental health crisis, burnout, other health complications. I'm so many of you, alongside discovering you're autistic, are discovering other things perhaps about your body and your health. That's not what this series is for though, unfortunately, but best of luck with that. That sounds really hard. Or that will be really hard. It must be, I am not sounding hopeful right now. Yeah, I like, all of those feelings are really hard. And it's really hard for me to speak to those right now, especially because I like am on the other side of all of those, very much so. But just know that it does get better, and it is worth it. Like, you're not ruining your life. What it is it's kind of like learning you're autistic is kind of like a second puberty, or a third puberty if you're trans. But it's a really uncomfortable transition where lots of changes are happening in your life, socially, maybe in your body, like mentally, the way you view yourself. Like, your sense of identity changing is like one of the like toughest battles, and that's backed by science, you know. Like, just losing all security in who you are and how you think the world is massive. It's huge. Like, it doesn't matter if it's maybe intangible or not visible. Like, that is such a massive hill to climb. And I'm so proud of you for being on this journey. Yeah, I've maybe broken record a little bit, but it will be fine. I guess one of the biggest things that I want to touch on, all of this grief. So, okay, in the context of the first few months of finding out you're autistic, few months actually is a huge understatement. I'm gonna say in the first 2 years of finding out you're autistic, roughly, give or take, you will have all of this grief. You'll probably have a lot of upset, insecurity, and anxiety, and also you're probably going to experience a huge amount of skill regression. Especially, you might be self-diagnosed, have a series of skill regression, or like have a period of skill regression, rebuild, adapt, adjust, accommodate, and then get formally diagnosed or just discover something new about yourself, and then kind of have that happen all over again. These periods of skill regression are very normal, and they're not something, like, what I've learned is actually just to not be upset by them and instead approach everything with curiosity, which is going to be a huge theme throughout the series, is actually just to reframe this grief and this loss as curiosity. Like, you're gifted this beautiful, amazing opportunity to get to know yourself on a deeper level than most people ever do. And that is so amazing, because what the result of that work and that curiosity is actually such a well-oiled system with so many defenses that aren't defensive. They're authentic, they're upfront, they're compassionate, they're understanding, and they support you. You know, like, we think about these outbursts, these big emotions, these sensitivities as a deficit, but how I like to think about these things, as well as my tics, how I like to think about my Tourette syndrome, is like a built-in alarm system that just makes things that aren't right for me so obvious. And I don't have to force myself to endure the things that I don't like necessarily. Sometimes there's a level of compromise, and that's going to be a future episode all about compromise, and how to do that safely. But really, I'm like, I don't have to endure those things, and my body is telling me, and I don't just have to like have all this depression or anxiety and not know where it stems from. It's so obvious where it's stemming from. And so really what it's like to learn how to be autistic is to learn how to listen to your body and your needs and then provide that for yourself. And sometimes providing that for yourself is also asking for help. And so I guess, what are some examples of skill regression in case you're unfamiliar with what this is? So for example, skill regression for me, which I thought was an aspect of my Tourette's but was actually an aspect of autism, is that, yeah, as aforementioned, when I was young I spoke in a baby voice, like very like late into childhood, until I was kind of like bullied and disciplined out of doing it. And I've always said to people throughout my life, like, I've always struggled to sing because my talking voice is a head voice. It's not my real voice, because my real voice is so childish. I sound like a toddler, like, and I even sound very childlike even with my grown-up voice sometimes, but just very babyish. And I'm just very childlike in character as well, even when I try not to be, which I actually personally love now. Or am I childlike, or am I just happy? Do I just have a lot of joy? And I don't filter my emotions. Debatable. But I definitely have a childlike voice, and a lot of my speaking abilities and language processing abilities just like went down a lot. I'd say like I had some, like, probably the language capacity and abilities of a third grader for a while. And then also I guess emotional regulation can also be a skill regulation, a skill regression symptom. But at the same time, was I emotionally regulating beforehand, or was I suppressing, and my like suppression dam no longer existed? It had been blown. It had exploded. I had no dam. What are other things? I really struggled with motor function as well, and I still do. My motor function has always been bad. I've always been bad at sports. I'm horrible mobile. I get injured a lot. That's another can of worms. If you know, you know. But it got even worse. I could not walk in a straight line. Social skills completely regressed. Like complex problem skills completely regressed. But also, like, that is due to stress. And this is such a complex thing. We're just touching on it, but expect a lot of skill regression. But know that like they will come back, and the skill regression is a great opportunity to know yourself. I would say everything with autism, every single deficit, even if you have severe autism, if you have the right accommodations, you are just as capable as any person out there. Because like a nonverbal autistic person, or an autistic person who really struggles with language, if given a model of language or communication that is accessible for them and works for them, and if they are surrounded with people who are also taking on board that mode of language, like even if you're a high needs autistic person in full-time care, if you have the correct accommodations and the people around you also understanding your accommodations and using them for you, like, you can do most things. And that's just a fact. And that's kind of what we mean when, obviously there's probably some exceptions out there, but that's not my place to speak on. Like, I think any perceived deficit that you experience after learning you're autistic and on your road is really just you understanding that the way that you've done things and the environments that you're in and the way you interact with the world is harmful to yourself. There's no debate. Like, it is harmful to yourself, and that's okay. You shouldn't tough it out. You shouldn't endure it. There's literally no benefit of doing that but appeasing other people who do not care about you. But we as individuals want to be in this world, and we want to exist in this world. You don't necessarily have to exist in a world with other people who do not understand, but You deserve to go out and access spaces, be involved in things, have huge career goals if you do so, if you please so, get married, have meaningful relationships, drive, you know, whatever it is that you want to do, you deserve to do and you are allowed to do. And so it's not about making these symptoms quieter so that we can partake in everyday society. It's about reframing how we go about the world and understanding what we need to do to access those things. So accommodations is like a whole massive episode. But for example, I love going to the supermarket. I love eating. I love cooking. I love shopping for food. It's just something that I love to do. But I really struggle in those spaces. So even now, just an example of me understanding that being in that space is harmful for me. A, sound. B, lighting. C, lots of different textures of picking up different items. And D, like potential social interactions, navigating people, which can cause anxiety for me. And also just sometimes difficult. I have a lot of like, if I have a cringe moment, like it just replays for ages. And I kind of just am super analytical of how I could avoid that next time. Like everything I do wrong, I'm processing like a computer to perfect, which I'm sure a lot of you would resonate with. So it doesn't even matter if I'm having the best day ever. Bare minimum, I always have noise cancelling headphones on. Until recently, I always had sunglasses on. Now I've swapped to regular glasses, but my sunglasses are always in my bag. Sometimes I'll wear a sunflower lanyard if I'm feeling like, that has more to do with Tourette's, the anxiety of if something happens, I kind of want people to be informed. Also advocacy, like I don't have to wear my sunflower lanyard and I believe that my neurodivergence is a disability because I've experienced it disable me. But everyone has a different relationship with the term disability, so that's literally just your journey. I'm not up for debating how I feel. It's just everyone's relationship with it is different, and I love that. But like I don't have to have my disabilities showing to feel like I need to wear my lanyard. Sometimes I just wear it so that people know that people who look like me and act like me can be disabled, because very often people go, you're not disabled, but they haven't seen me, you know, having multiple people assist me with day-to-day life before, and then they don't see me at my worst. And also I might have a fidget, and quite often I have a body double. But sometimes also I don't want a body double, and sometimes I just want to go in non-verbal music blasting, and that's also a thing. But those aren't debatable. That's my bare minimum. Why would you show up to a fight without armor? You know, that's just my bare minimum kit for leaving the house, and that's fine. In fact, that's awesome. I have my little deck. I probably look really cool. That's just an example of me making the world more accessible for myself. What's another example? I live in a share house with only other autistic people. Some autistic people thrive living by themselves because they can't really regulate with other people not following their routines, and that's fine as long as you have a support system, people who can check in on you. But like I live in a house with only other autistic people because I just don't have to put so much effort into explaining myself, and I can crash the fuck out and no one blinks an eye. Sorry, I should crash out and no one blinks an eye. Brain fart. I'm sorry, I'm experiencing some mental fatigue. But yeah, I guess overall, the first little bit of experiencing You're Autistic, you probably like have had a lot of feelings of instability prior to this realization. Like you've probably gone out and sought to understand autism as a result of having a really hard period in your life, and if so, awesome. Or a lot of people just tell you. I have plenty of friends who aren't diagnosed and we're like, hell yeah, that person's autistic, like they just have way too many dinosaurs, you know, or like just like no pain stimuli, like if you know, you know. But yeah, I feel like I need to wrap this up. This is not such a well-structured episode, but that's okay. Basically, welcome to the club. Welcome to Town. You are loved here, and please comment down below. I have like 10 episodes planned out, but please comment down below anything that you might like me to discuss, and if it's just something small, I can answer it in the comments. And also feedback about the accessibility of this video, if you felt like you could follow it, or if I was rambling too much. Don't know how much I can improve on that, because that's just me. But yes, next episode, what are we talking about? Next episode is gonna be a great episode. It's all about capacity, which is epic. That's a whole thing. So basically all about understanding how much capacity you have for things, how to know what energy you have for the day, a little bit about compromise, but that's going to be very exciting. And then I think this might be its own episode, but I might add it to the next one. But a traffic light system, accommodations, and alternative models of communication. This is just autism is just such a huge topic, you know, and it's very hard for me to talk about this without someone talking back to me, you know, like I don't have the back and forth. But yes, once again, I want to reassure you, you are so fine. Nothing is wrong with you. If anything, you're actually cooler than everyone else. After you get to know yourself and you've unpacked everything and what this means for you, you're actually going to be a badass. You're going to be like a tree with the most stable roots ever. You're going to be so smart. You're going to be so great emotionally regulating. You're going to be so honest with yourself and others. I'm like, honestly, glow up. And I'm holding your hand through all of this. Like, I have done this. I've been through this, and it was so hard. And now I am so happy. Most of the time. Autistic joy is really so special, and choosing to love your neurodivergence rather than see it as a deficit is so rewarding. I'm actually just giddy every single day and so happy because my life is comfortable and it's a life meant for me. I'm not enduring anything that I don't have to. So I really am happy every single day, which is crazy. If you told me 5 years ago that I would wake up every day excited for the day because everything that I'm doing like is relevant to my needs, even when I'm having a bad day, I feel so reassured and like I've got this, because everything that I'm doing is for my own comfort, and like I'm watering my own seed constantly. I have the right amount of sunlight, like it's beautiful. And discovering you're autistic is just giving yourself the opportunity to understand how to do all these things. I love you, you've got this, and I'll see you in the next episode.